The storm was heavy, and the snow fell without mercy. The world was silent, except for the howl of the cold wind. Beneath the endless white lay three forgotten bodies, three alien sisters, small and weak. Buried alive under a deep snowdrift, their people had left them there. They were born different, born infertile. And in their world, that meant no future. The tribe called them cursed. Instead of love, they were given death. They were pushed into the snow and covered until the world forgot their names. But the sisters did not die. Their tiny hearts still beat slowly. Fighting against the ice that tried to freeze them, their breath was shallow. Their eyes half closed, they waited in silence. Trapped between life and death, the storm raged on for hours. The sky turned dark and the snow piled higher. The world wanted them gone, yet destiny had other plans far away. A lone human traveler walked through the storm. His heavy boots sank into the snow. He pulled his coat tight against his body. Every breath turned into ice in the air. He was not supposed to be there. This planet was dangerous, frozen and empty, but he was searching for something resources. Shelter, maybe even hope. His light cut through the storm. A small beam against the endless dark. Step by step, he pushed forward, refusing to stop. The silence of the frozen world felt endless, until he heard it, a faint, strange sound. Like a whisper beneath the snow. He stopped. He listened. At first, he thought it was the wind. But no, the sound was different, soft, broken, almost like crying. His heart raced. He dropped to his knees and brushed away the snow with his gloves. The sound grew louder, weak but real. The man froze in shock. There was life under the snow. He began to dig. His hands worked fast, throwing snow aside. His shovel struck something solid, not ice. Not rock, but skin, pale skin, glowing faintly under the weak light. He cleared more snow and saw a face. Not human eyes, closed, skin marked with strange patterns. Lips blue from the cold, his breath caught in his chest. It was an alien child. No, there were more. Two other faces pressed together under the snow. All of them barely alive. The human's mind screamed to run. Aliens were dangerous. Everyone knew that. But his heart would not let him. They were dying, and if he left them, he would never forgive himself. He dug harder, faster, until his arms ached. Finally, he pulled the three sisters free from their icy grave. They were cold, shaking, and silent. For a moment, he thought he was too late. Then one of them opened her eyes. They glowed faintly in the darkness. She looked at him with fear and confusion. Her lips moved. No words, just a soft cry. The man wrapped them in his heavy coat. He whispered, "You are safe now. I will not leave you." His voice was steady. But his heart was racing. He had no idea what he had just done. He only knew he could not walk away. The storm screamed around him. The snow tried to bury them again, but the humans stood tall, holding the three fragile lives against his chest. Step by step, he carried them back through the storm. Every sound of their weak breathing gave him strength to keep going. Behind them, the snowdrift slowly covered the hole again, as if the world wanted to erase the truth, but the truth was alive now. The three alien sisters had been saved, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same. The human did not know it yet, but by saving them, he had changed his destiny and theirs. The silence of the frozen world had been broken. And from this silence, a dangerous story was about to rise. Asterisk, the cabin was small, built from metal and broken parts of an old ship. It stood in the middle of the frozen land like a lonely box of warmth against the endless storm. The human pushed the heavy door open with his shoulder, his arms full, holding the three weak sisters close to his chest. The cold wind tried to follow him inside, but he forced the door shut with one kick. At once, the silence changed. No more screaming wind. No more snow biting into his skin. Inside, the air was warmer. A fire burned low in the corner, and the little room smelled of smoke and metal. He laid the three sisters gently on a bed made of blankets, his hands shaking as he touched their icy skin. They were so light, almost weightless. Their bodies thin, their breaths shallow. The man ripped off his gloves and pressed his fingers against their necks. A faint beat. Yes, they were alive, but only just. He rushed to the fire, threw more wood and scraps onto the flames, making it roar louder. Steam filled the air as he boiled water in a metal pot. He tore open a packet of dried food, smashed it, mixed it, poured hot water. The smell of soup filled the cabin. Simple but full of heat, he carried the bowl to the bed. But they were too weak to move. He cursed under his breath, then dipped his fingers in the warm broth. He touched it to one sister's lips. Her mouth twitched. Her tongue flicked. She swallowed. Hope sparked in his chest. One by one, he fed them drops of soup. His patience endless. Their eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the dim cabin, three pairs of alien eyes staring at him. Confused, scared, yet alive, he smiled, though his heart still beat like thunder. "You are safe," he said softly. "I found you. You are not alone anymore." The sisters did not understand his words, but they felt his voice. It was calm, warm, nothing like the cold death that had buried them. The eldest sister tried to sit, but her body shook too much. The man helped her, wrapping the blanket tighter. Her fingers touched his hand thin, trembling, glowing faint blue at the tips. He froze, staring, but did not pull away. The glow faded after a second, as if her strength was too weak to hold it. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" But no answer came, only her weak breath. Hours passed. The storm outside grew weaker, but inside the cabin, another storm had started. The human sat near the bed, watching, waiting. Feeding them, every cough, every small movement made his chest tighten with fear. He had survived on this frozen planet alone. But now he had 3 lives depending on him. When night fell, the sisters stirred. They whispered to each other in a strange tongue, soft like music, but broken by pain the human could not understand. But he knew one thing: they were afraid. Afraid of him, afraid of the world, afraid of being alive. He leaned closer, his voice steady. "No one will hurt you here," he promised. The youngest sister blinked, tilted her head, and pressed her hand to his chest. She felt his heartbeat, fast and strong. For the first time since their birth, she felt warmth that was not cruel. They did not know his name, and he did not know theirs. But in that moment, a bridge had formed, not of words, but of survival. The humans stayed awake all night, adding wood to the fire, checking their breathing, making more soup. He thought of what might happen if anyone else found out. Aliens were feared, hated, hunted if his people learned what he had done. They would call him a traitor, but still, he did not regret it. Near dawn, the eldest sister's voice broke the silence. A single word, heavy, strange, but clear. "Why?" The human froze. She had spoken his language. Not perfectly, but enough. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. Searching for the answer, he swallowed hard and said, "Because no one deserves to die alone in the snow." The sisters looked at him, their glowing eyes wide. They did not smile. But something changed in their gaze. A small light of trust, a small spark of hope. The storm outside faded, the first weak rays of alien sunrise touching the ice. But inside the cabin, something greater was rising. The rescue was complete, but the story had only just begun. The human did not know who these sisters were, or why fate had buried them beneath the snow. But deep inside, he felt the truth by saving them. He had awakened something dangerous, something powerful. and the universe would never forgive him for it. The cabin became their world. Outside, the frozen storm still ruled the land. But inside, there was fire, warmth, and a fragile peace. The human worked day and night, making sure the three sisters lived. He gave them food, wrapped them in blankets, and taught them simple words in his language. At first, the sisters only stared in silence, their glowing eyes watching every move he made. They did not trust easily. How could they? After their own people had buried them alive. But hunger broke fear, and little by little, they accepted his help. The youngest learned first, pointing at things with her thin hand, repeating the human's words in a soft voice. "Fire," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Warm," the man smiled, his heart lifting each time they spoke. He called them by simple names, since their true names were strange and hard to say. The eldest he called Star because her eyes shone the brightest. The second he named Snow for her pale skin that looked like ice. And the youngest he called Ember, for in her small laugh there was hidden fire. The sisters repeated these names, touching their chests when they spoke. For the first time in their short lives, they had been given names of hope, not names of shame. Days passed. But the danger outside never left. The human knew that if anyone found them, both he and the sisters would be in grave danger, so he made the cabin a fortress. He sealed cracks in the walls, covered the windows, hid their footprints in the snow at night. He listened for ships in the sky, engines that might belong to hunters. The sisters stayed quiet, huddled close to the fire. But their glowing eyes revealed their fear. One night, when the flames were low, the human noticed something strange as the sisters slept. Faint marks glowed on their skin, strange symbols, like lines of light written by an invisible hand. He leaned closer, his breath caught. The symbols pulsed like living veins. When the sisters woke, he asked, "What are those marks?" Star lowered her gaze, her voice broken but clear. "We are cursed," she said, "born empty, unable to give life." "We were thrown away," Snow added softly. "Our tribe said we are shadows. They buried us so the stars would forget us, the youngest." Ember trembled as she whispered, "But the marks mean something else. They say we are part of a story that is not finished." The human felt a chill, not from the cold, but from their words. He looked at the glowing symbols, felt the weight of their pain. And yet also something greater, a secret, a prophecy. "Perhaps even a power," he whispered. "Your people feared you, not because you were weak, but because you were different." The sisters looked at him, their glowing eyes wide. They did not answer, but deep inside, they knew his words might be true. The next morning, he found Ember outside the cabin, standing barefoot in the snow. Her small body shivered. But she did not fall. He shouted, "What are you doing? You'll freeze," and rushed to carry her back inside. But before he touched her, the snow around her feet began to melt. Steam rose into the cold air, as if her body carried a secret fire. The human froze in shock. Ember looked at him with fear and whispered, "This is why they hate us." He carried her back in, but his mind would not rest. What powers did these sisters carry? Powers that even their own people could not accept. He looked at the three of them, fragile yet dangerous. He realized that his small cabin, his secret shelter, was holding something far greater than he had ever imagined. That night, as the storm roared outside, the sisters huddled close together. They whispered in their alien tongue, their voices like soft music. The human could not understand the words, but he understood the fear. Their own people would never stop hunting them. And if others discovered the truth of their powers, the whole universe might come for them. Still, the human did not regret. He looked at them and said, "No matter what happens, I will protect you." His voice was steady, his eyes full of fire. The sisters felt the weight of his promise, for the first time. They were not just cursed children left to die. They were alive, they were hidden, and they were not alone. But outside the frozen walls of the cabin, the universe was moving. Hunters were searching. Signals were spreading, and whispers of the cursed sisters were already flying across the stars. The secret shelter kept them safe for now. Yet fate was preparing to test them, and soon. The snow would no longer be enough to hide what they truly were. The days inside the cabin grew longer. The storm outside slowed, but the human felt no peace. Each night he woke to whispers, soft alien voices filling the small shelter. The sisters huddled together, their glowing eyes open in the dark. Their hands pressed over the strange marks on their skin. The human could not understand their words, but he felt the weight of their secrets. Every night they spoke of things too heavy for children, things older than the snow. And the more he listened, the more his fear grew, mixed with a strange curiosity he could not deny. One evening, when the fire burned low, the eldest sister, Star, sat beside him. Her voice was soft, but clear. "You wonder why we glow? Why we were buried?" He nodded, his eyes locked on hers. Star unwrapped the blanket from her thin shoulders, and in the flickering light, the symbols on her skin pulsed bright. They were not random, they were written patterns. Sharp and beautiful, glowing like the stars above the frozen sky. "These marks are not sickness," she said, her voice trembling. "They are prophecy." The human's breath caught prophecy. He asked. Snow, the second sister, leaned forward, her voice colder than her name. "Our people fear it. They say we are cursed because we were born infertile." Unable to bring new life, her eyes glowed with sorrow. "But the truth is worse to them. We are not empty. We are a sign, a reminder of what is to come." The youngest, Ember, whispered as if afraid the snow itself would hear. "The old stories say that 3 sisters with dead wombs will rise, their blood carrying fire that cannot be controlled. They will bring change to the race, either rebirth or destruction." Her hands shook. Her eyes filled with tears. "So they buried us." Before the story could begin, the human felt the cabin walls close in. He looked at them, fragile yet powerful, cursed yet alive. His voice was rough. "So they feared you not because you were weak, but because you were too important." The sisters said nothing, but their silence was answer enough. That night, the human could not sleep. He paced the floor, his mind burning. 3 children, marked with prophecy, carrying the power to change an entire species. If their people discovered they were alive, nothing would stop them from sending armies. He looked at the sisters asleep by the fire, their glowing marks fading with their breath. He whispered to himself, "I should never have found them. Yet I cannot let them go." The next morning, something strange happened as the sun rose weakly over the frozen sky. Ember stepped outside, her bare feet pressing into the snow. The human rushed after her, shouting, but then he stopped, frozen by what he saw. The snow around her melted in a wide circle, steam rising into the cold air. Her small body glowed faintly, the marks on her arms burning brighter than the dawn. The snow hissed and vanished, leaving wet ground where no heat should exist. She turned to him, her eyes wide with fear. "This is why they hate us," she whispered. "This is why we can never go home." He carried her back inside, his heart racing. The sisters clung to each other, whispering in fear. Star finally spoke, her voice sharp. "We are hunted, always hunted. Our tribe will not stop until we are ash in the snow." The human clenched his fists, his voice steady. "Then they will have to go through me first." The sisters looked at him in silence, their glowing eyes wide for the first time. They felt not just protection, but defiance. This human was not like their own kind. He would not bury them. He would fight for them. But outside the cabin, beyond the snowdrifts, the danger was already moving in the distance. Strange lights flickered in the sky. Alien ships, searching, scanning, hunting. The sisters' prophecy had not been buried deep enough. The universe had begun to remember them. Inside the cabin, the human held his weapon close. Staring at the frozen window, the sisters sat by the fire, their marks glowing faintly in the dark. They were no longer just survivors. They were a secret that could set worlds on fire. And as the wind howled outside, the human understood the truth. He had not rescued them by chance. He had stepped into a story far greater than himself. A story of blood, prophecy, and war. The mystery of the sisters was no longer hidden. It was awake, and soon others would come to claim it. The silence of the frozen land was broken. Far above the snow clouds, dark shapes cut across the sky. Alien ships, their engines humming low. Lights glowing like hungry eyes in the storm. They moved slowly, searching, hunting, scanning the white ground below, inside the small cabin. The human felt the vibration before he heard the sound. He froze, every sense alert, his hand tightening around the old rifle at his side. The sisters sat by the fire, their glowing eyes wide with fear. They knew the sound too well. It was the song of death. The song of hunters, Star whispered, her voice breaking. "They're here." Snow clutched her arm, her pale fingers shaking. Ember pressed her small hands to her glowing marks as if trying to hide them. The human's chest tightened. But he kept his voice steady. "Quiet now. Stay low. No one leaves this room." He snuffed the fire quickly. Leaving the cabin in dim shadow, the warmth faded. And the sisters huddled together under the blankets, their eyes glowing faint in the dark. The human pulled a metal plate over the window and peered through a crack. The sky above shimmered with alien lights, scanning beams sliding across the snow. One beam passed dangerously close to the cabin. The human's heart stopped for a moment, but the ship moved on. Then came the sound boots in the snow, heavy and sharp. Figures appeared in the distance, tall, armored, carrying weapons that glowed faint blue. Their eyes burned under dark helmets. Scanning, searching, the hunters had landed. The human moved back from the window, his face pale, but his jaw set. He whispered, "They cannot see you. If they see you, they will never stop. Do you understand?" The sisters nodded, their glowing eyes filled with tears. But they stayed silent. The hunters spread out, their voices strange and metallic as they spoke in their alien tongue. One stopped, his helmet turning toward the cabin. He lifted a scanner, its light sweeping across the small metal walls. The human gripped his rifle tighter, his breath sharp. If they came closer, he would fight, though he knew he was only one against many. The scanner beeped faintly. The hunter frowned, and for a terrifying moment he stepped closer. Snow gasped, too loud. The sound broke the silence like glass. The human spun, his hand pressing gently over her mouth, begging for silence, but it was too late. The hunter had heard. He raised a hand, signaling the others. 5 armored figures began to move toward the cabin, snow crunching beneath their boots. The human's heart pounded. He whispered fast, "Hide behind the wall. Stay low, no matter what happens." "Do not move." The sisters obeyed, crawling to the darkest corner, wrapping themselves in blankets, their glowing eyes dimmed by fear. The human stood near the door, rifle in hand, his finger ready on the trigger. The sound of boots grew louder, closer, until they were right outside. A sharp knock shook the metal door. Then a voice, harsh and deep, called out in alien words. Demanding entry, the human stayed silent, his chest burning. The knock came again, harder, the metal bending under the force. Finally, the hunters forced the door open. Snow swirling inside, they stepped in, tall shadows filling the small cabin. Their weapons glowing in the dim light. The human raised his rifle. Not firing yet, his voice firm. "This place is mine." "Leave now." The hunters turned their helmets toward him. Cold laughter echoing through their speakers. One raised a scanner and swept it across the room. The device beeped again, pointing toward the blankets in the corner. Star gasped. Unable to hold back, the hunters snapped their heads toward the sound. Their weapons lifting, the human fired first. The crack of his rifle echoing like thunder in the small room. One hunter fell back, his armor sparking. The cabin exploded into chaos. Blasts of blue fire tore through the walls, burning holes in the metal. The sisters screamed. The human shouted, "Stay down," as he fired again. But there were too many, 5 against 1. Their weapons stronger, faster. The cabin shook with each blast, smoke filling the air. Then something impossible happened. The sisters rose from the corner. Their glowing marks burning bright like fire. Ember's small hands burst with heat. Steam filling the room as the snow at her feet melted. Star's eyes glowed like suns. Her body trembling with energy, Snow's pale skin shimmered, light spilling from her fingertips. The hunters froze for a second, fear flashing in their cold eyes. They had found what they were looking for. The cursed sisters were alive. But now the sisters were no longer weak children. Their hidden power was awake. The human shouted. No, trying to hold them back, but it was too late. The room filled with light, heat, and a roar that shook the cabin. The hunters screamed as the sisters unleashed their power. The snow outside hissed and melted. The storm itself seemed to run. The battle had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The cabin walls smoked. Holes burned into the metal. The smell of fire and ice filled the air. The hunters had fled into the storm. Their armor broken, their pride shattered. But they were not gone for long. The sisters stood glowing in the darkness. Their marks burning bright, their breaths heavy. Their small bodies shaking from the power they had just unleashed. The human stared at them, his rifle trembling in his hands. Not from fear of the hunters, but from fear of what he had just seen, he whispered. "What have you done?" Star's voice cracked. "We did not mean to. The power comes when danger comes. We cannot stop it." Snow clutched her hands, her pale skin still glowing. "They will bring more soldiers now, more ships. They will not rest until we are dead." Ember's eyes burned like fire. Her small voice trembling, "We should run." Before they return, the human looked at the sisters. His jaw tight. Run? Yes, it was the safe choice. Leave the cabin. Hide in the mountains, vanish before the hunters came back. But another thought burned in his mind. Even if they ran, the hunters would keep searching. More ships would come, and sooner or later the sisters would be found again. There would never be peace unless they stood and fought. He lowered his rifle, his voice steady. "You have a choice now. You can run and keep running. Or you can stay and face what hunts you, but whatever you choose. I will not leave you." The sisters froze. Their glowing eyes locked on him. Star's lips trembled. "Why do you risk your life for us? We are not your kind." The human stepped closer. His voice deep and strong. "Because when I found you under the snow, I saw 3 children left to die. I will not let the universe decide your fate. You will decide it yourself." The cabin fell into silence. The storm outside whispering against the walls. The sisters huddled together, whispering in their alien tongue. Their voices sharp, afraid, then soft. Thoughtful, finally, Star turned back to him. Her eyes glowing bright. "If we fight, we may die." The human nodded. "If you run, you will still die one day." Hunted and alone, he looked at each of them, his voice steady. "But if you fight, Maybe you will live free." Snow's eyes filled with tears. She had always been the quietest, the one who wanted to hide. But even she felt the truth of his words. Ember pressed her hands against the floor. Her voice soft but fierce. "I am tired of hiding. Tired of being called cursed. I want to fight." Star looked at her sisters, then at the human, and finally she spoke. "Then we choose to fight." The human's chest rose with pride, but fear still burned in his heart. He began to prepare. Moving quickly through the small cabin, he gathered weapons, tools, old explosives from his broken ship. He showed the sisters how to hold small blades, how to move silently, how to watch without being seen. At first, they were clumsy, their bodies weak. But soon, something strange happened. When they stood together, their power flowed stronger. Star's light guided their movements. Snow's cold touch hardened their skin. Ember's fire burned hotter when her sisters were near. They were not soldiers, but they were more than children now. Each night, they trained in the snow outside. Hidden by the storm, the human taught them to survive like him silent steps. Sharp eyes, strong hearts, and in return, the sisters taught him what their marks meant. When they touched hands, energy sparked. Flowing like lightning between them, the human felt at once. When Ember's small hand brushed his, and it was like fire under his skin, powerful, alive, dangerous. He pulled back quickly, his breath sharp, and the sisters only looked at him in silence. As if they knew something he did not, days passed, each one heavy with waiting. The human knew the hunters were regrouping. Preparing a larger force, the sky stayed restless. Strange lights flickered above the storm, signals whispered across the stars. The universe was watching now. The prophecy was awake. One night, as the fire burned low, Star asked the question that weighed on all of them. What if fighting means the end of us? What if prophecy is true and we bring destruction? The human looked at her. His voice calm, then let the universe decide. Not your enemies, not your tribe. Not the hunters, only you. You are not curses. You are choices. The sisters felt his words sink into their hearts like fire into snow. For the first time, they believed they could shape their own story. Not shadows, not victims, not just children buried alive, but something stronger, something alive with power. Outside, in the distance, the faint roar of engines echoed again. The hunters were coming back. The sisters rose. Their glowing marks bright, their small bodies trembling with fear, but steady with courage. The human loaded his rifle, his jaw tight, his eyes sharp. They had made their choice. Together, they would fight. The night sky shook with fire. Engines roared above the storm as more alien ships broke through the clouds, their lights cutting across the frozen land like knives. The hunters had returned, this time not 5, not 10, but an army. The ground trembled as metal boots struck the snow. 100 shadows marching toward the small cabin. Weapons glowing blue in the dark. Inside, the human stood ready. His rifle loaded, his jaw set. The sisters gathered close, their glowing marks burning brighter than ever, their small bodies trembling with both fear and power. They had chosen to fight, but none of them knew if this night would be their last. The door shook as the hunters surrounded the cabin, voices shouting in their alien tongue. Demanding surrender, the human raised his weapon. His voice steady. Remember, no running now, no hiding. We stand together. Star nodded, her eyes blazing like twin suns. Together, Snow placed her cold hand over his arm, her touch steadying his fear. Ember whispered, her voice like a spark. We will not die in the snow again. The door burst open. Hunters stormed inside, weapons raised, the human fired. The sisters screamed, and the battle began. Blasts of blue fire tore through the air, sparks flying off metal walls. The cabin shook, breaking apart, smoke filling every corner. But the sisters unleashed their hidden strength. Star raised her hands, beams of pure light bursting from her body. Blinding the hunters, snow touched the ground, and ice rose like jagged spears, blocking enemy fire. Ember screamed, flames pouring from her small hands, melting snow and armor alike. The hunters fell back, some burning, some frozen. Their perfect march broken by chaos. The human fought beside them, every shot from his rifle sharp. Every move desperate but brave. For a moment, hope burned. The impossible seemed real, they could win. But then the sky itself split open. From the largest ship descended a towering figure. Taller, stronger, wrapped in dark armor, marked with glowing runes. The commander of the hunters, the one who had sworn to erase the prophecy. The sisters froze, their power faltering under his gaze. The commander's voice thundered. "Children of the curse, you were meant to die. You should have never risen from the snow." The human stepped forward. His rifle steady, his voice sharp. "They are not curses, they are life. And they will not die today." The commander laughed, cold and cruel, and raised a weapon larger than the human himself. The sisters cried out, their glowing marks burning bright, their power surging. But even together, they were weakening, their young bodies unable to control such force for long. The human knew what he had to do. He threw himself in front of them. Taking the commander's blast full on, the energy struck. Fire and ice ripping across his chest, and he fell to his knees, blood staining the snow. The sisters screamed, rushing to him, their hands glowing, their tears falling like stars. Star pressed her forehead to his, whispering, "Why did you do this?" The human's voice was broken but strong. "Because no one deserves to be buried in the snow. Not you, not anyone." At that moment, something impossible happened. The sisters' glowing marks flared as they touched him. Their power surged into his body, mixing with his human blood. Light exploded from the ground, brighter than the sun, shaking the storm itself away. The commander staggered back, his armor cracking. His weapon shattering, the sisters rose, their eyes burning like stars. Their voices united. "We are not cursed. We are change, together with the human's life force." Their power became complete. Flames and ice twisted into pure energy, bursting outward in a storm that swallowed the hunters. When the light faded, the army was gone, their ships broken. Their commander buried deep beneath the melted snow. The land was silent again, the storm gone. The sky clear for the first time in years. The sisters knelt beside the human. His body weak, his breath shallow, but he was alive, glowing faintly with their energy, their power now tied to him. Snow whispered, tears on her pale cheeks. "He is part of us now." Ember pressed her small hands over his chest. "He saved us, and we saved him." Star looked at the horizon, her glowing eyes filled with new fire. "No, we saved more than him. We saved the future, for the truth had been revealed." The prophecy was not about death or curse, but about rebirth. Three sisters, once called infertile, now carried life in another way. Joined with the human's blood, they held the power to begin anew, not only for themselves, but for their entire race. The snowdrift that once buried them was gone, melted into flowing water that sparkled under the sun. The human stood weak but alive, the sisters at his side. Together they looked at the silent land, knowing it was only the beginning. The hunters would return, the universe would fear them. But no longer would they be shadows in the snow. They were light, they were fire, they were the future. And the story of three sisters and a human who defied destiny had only just begun.